Welcome to Storytelling with Lindsay Bednar.
Hi.
Hey,
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. I am so looking forward to reconnecting today. I was just telling my sister I am
Uh-huh.
just excited to be in your energy and to find out all about what's going on with you. But honestly, just to be with you is always so fun.
I know, I totally agree. I was just like so looking forward to being in that, brilliance of you. So cool.
So sweet. Your hair's cute. You get it cut?
Yeah, I did. I was doing this meditation series earlier this year, and it was all about like the permission to like create and be creative, and like it was 28 days of meditating every day together.
Mm.
And I just like at the end of it, like the last day, I was like, I need a change, something's got to go. And so my hair was like so long, I hadn't cut it for like probably 2 years or something, and I just chopped it, so it felt really good.
And I need to get into some sort of structured meditation again because I've been out of
Yeah.
that for a while. And
Oh,
unless
cool.
like with anything, unless I have
Yeah.
some sort of structure around it, it's just
Yeah.
like put on the back burner. So
For sure. It's really easy. I'd love to have you in one of the series. Like I do them for now. That one was a 28-day one, but now I'm doing them 11 days every month. So it starts on the 11th of the month. And so day 11. So today, this month, it was 11/11. We started and it'll go for 11 days. So then at least for 11 days out of the month, you can be accountable to like show up every day.
right.
And it's fun. It's really cool. It's like, I come up with a different theme and like they kind of come to me based on like, what I'm seeing with clients and stuff. And then, um, yeah, it's really, really cool to see the themes and stuff.
That's awesome. Okay, so tell me, in addition to that, what you've been up to since we've connected last.
So it's pretty cool because when we first talked last time, like I was just starting out doing frequency work sessions and stuff. And so I remember at the end of that, like just kind of announcing like that I might be doing a retreat. And it's so funny because after that, like retreats just started kind of like swooping me up and kind of taking me all over the place. And it's been so fun. I've been really called and like connected to the energy of community. And so that's been like a huge excitement for me. I've been hosting retreats. So I had those two retreats. That was last year. And then I did another one here in Door County, Wisconsin. And then we did one in Sedona and then one in Mount Shasta. So it's like, it's so cool because it's like you don't exactly know, who's going to show up, but there's like such a creative energy when it comes to like, I come up with all the food. So it's like coming up with like the fun meals and different salads. And like, I feel like Kristen is like such a good inspiration when it comes to, food and like doing her detox. They use so many of the meals that I've used or like invented during the detox for the retreats. And so it's like, it's just a fun time to like be really creative and like find a cool place and like figure out where we're going to go do different meditations and stuff. So retreats are like kind of a big thing for me right now.
That's amazing. You're ahead of the curve because as you know, we're entering into, I mean, we've been in it really, but the
Yeah.
Aquarian age, we're
Yeah.
really integrating into it now. And so community is going to be like one of the biggest things that we
I'm
all
here for it. I
get
know.
back to. I mean, it's been lost for so long.
Yeah, it's really fun. And it's like, it's exciting to think back to like the little tiny nuggets that you get in terms of like clarity of that Aquarian age starting to come out. Like, I remember I went to it was at a numerologist, like a circle, and it was out in San Diego, at the beginning of 2020. And we're still gathering at that time in person, and the lady was like talking about the Aquarian age and like the like intensity that was going to happen that year. She didn't know at the time what was going to happen. This was like end of January. And she starts pulling cards and she's like, okay, she pulls these four different cards for me. And this lady just had so much magic. Like she had been doing tarot and numerology since like the 70s. And so she's like, okay, Aquarian age, like I see you like with a lot of land, people gathering, and like you're going to be like living your dream for the rest of your life. And it's just like, I feel like I think about that phrase, like living your dream for the rest of your life. I think about that like almost every day when I wake up, because it's like totally what that is, what it is here.
Cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
because you're in Door County, right? Which
Yeah.
is like amazing, like immersed in nature. I haven't
Yeah.
been there yet, but from everything that I've known and seen, it is a fantastic place to be.
Yeah, it's cool. And it's like, I like it because I mean, now that I'm more settled here from San Diego, it's a huge contrast. Like San Diego is a big city. And then moving out here, people are like, oh, you live in the big city. I'm like, I live in like a town with 10,000 people, but like the other towns, some of them have that are like, 20, 30 minutes away. They have like 300 people. So,
Yeah.
this does seem like a bigger city, but I mean, feels really remote to me. So I really like it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, so one thing that I would love to get your perspective on too,
Mhm.
that we've been talking about more, and I just had Chris on my podcast talking a bit about the Aquarian age, but I like if you're, a lot of people think it's woo woo and we're in this, you're either kind of plugged into this community where we're talking about energy and frequency, tarot cards, like all the
Yeah.
things, and um and astrology. And so for people who might not be as connected, like what in your mind is the Aquarian age all about, and what are the signs that we're entering into it?
Well, I love that as like a precursor question because, we're all living experiences with family. So it's like I look at like my family, my old friends, even my husband, they're not, sitting around and meditating for hours every day. Like they're just not. And so it's like this is something that I've had to figure out how to explain, like what are the signs and what is different about this new age? What is awakening really about? And so in my experience and understanding, it's showing us through all of these things that are happening to everyone all at once. So I like to kind of think about the energy or the experience as almost like a pregnancy would happen. So, like, there's all these different stages of like the pregnancy. So, um, when we think about like and they're happening in like phases, so like let's just say it's like one kid and then another kid. So we think about 2019. So 2019 was a time where, you know like maybe we all are looking back at it with like rose colored glasses, that like everything was great and we felt so free, but then all of a sudden things came to a halt. And what happened was, just like if you were to find out you were pregnant, things would kind of start to change and shift, and you'd have to get um in like sync with this new lifestyle. So that's kind of what happened with COVID. It reset everybody at the same experience. So that's one of the biggest tells that we're going through a big massive shift. So we all had to go through that same experience. So now we all over the world have that shared experience of wearing masks, going through lockdown, all of that stuff. And so that's massive. And then even like the most recent election, it's like everybody has a feeling about it, whether it's a good feeling or a bad feeling. Like people are not going to forget, because there's just been such an impact on how social media has impacted this election. I remember 2020 election when, political stuff started to come up more and more on social media, and even like oh, have you voted yet? And now it's just like we're seeing the power of the information and of technology in such a big way, and we're all going through that together as a humanity. So it's like, to go back to the pregnancy analogy, it's like, so that first kid or that first wave of us all like resetting or getting on the same wave of consciousness was everybody going through COVID and all of that stuff. And like the lockdown and everything. And then going back to normalcy was like, oh, okay, we had the birth and now the kids won. And then in 2022, it was like you turned 2 years old. And then all of a sudden, things start to happen again where the energy starts to shift again. And it was interesting because this year, earlier in about April, around that eclipse was another opportunity. So everybody was wearing their little eclipse glasses, was so excited. This is the like first time in 200 years, or the next time is whatever, 160 years from now. So everybody's looking up, and like everybody all over like knew that this eclipse is happening. So that's another tell that like we're all getting on the same wave and on the same page. So what happens then? It's like, oh, okay, that might be the moment that you're like looking at this pregnancy test and recognizing, oh, okay, maybe things are going to change, but they don't really start changing. They change gradually. I mean, you've had babies, so you kind of have an idea for like that building period and how things start to grow. And then like, I don't know, once you have the kid, you think that like everything's going to change in an instant, but it like starts to probably happen really, really gradually and subtly. So
Right.
yeah, speak on that.
Yeah, I love that analogy, and it's so true. You know, I've heard it as like purity waves that come in. And this is I feel like such another great visual just to help people understand like how it does come in phases and how
Yeah.
there's anticipation, there's excitement, there's discomfort. And that's another thing too, is I am so excited. Like we were messaging back and forth, like what a time to be alive. This is the best time to be alive. And like I feel like we were born for it.
Yeah.
And whether everybody realizes it or not, like they chose to come during this time.
Yeah.
But on the surface, people feel like we've never been more divided and that the polarity is at an all-time high.
Yeah.
And so, you know, trying to have conversations with people about how excited I am versus the fear that people are holding and the discomfort people are having with conversations with family members and friends and neighbors.
Yeah.
It's an interesting paradigm because it's so different.
Well, it's scary because it's like, the one thing that we want is a sense of safety. And the only thing that feels safe right now is what we've known in the past. And like, it feels like we're going forward towards a place of like so much uncertainty, whatever, your political stance is, it doesn't matter. But it's like, it just feels like we're going towards uncertainty. For some, it's like this exciting uncertainty that you're not really sure, but you just want to be able to press fast forward for it to just like come faster. And on another end, it's like, just feeling like a lot of immense fear and discomfort. And also, I think disillusionment with people that don't, feel the same way as you. So I think that it's about recognizing that, like, just like with a pregnancy, there's going to be like these different emotions. There's going to be some times where it's like, oh my God, like a new life is coming. Look at this. This came out of, my destiny to be able to like bear this child. And then there's the other part of like, how's this thing going to come out of me? Like, this is really scary. And I have to, change a whole room in my house and like get everything organized and like be prepared. And I don't know when it's coming. So it's like, it's that, but like ultimately there's the seed of what we all have in common as humans, which is like the physical body and like the physical breath. And so it's like, that's where becoming grounded in like the neutrality of what's happening is what gives us the higher perspective. So I think that that's something that like you and I might be able to do, is kind of like we can anchor down and be in the present and be like, oh, wow, things are kind of chaotic, but we're neutral enough to be able to like zoom out and be like, oh, whoa, this is like creating a huge ripple effect that is moving things forward in a way that's a lot faster than like has ever been possible. So
Right. That's such a good point. I feel like there's probably never been a better time to get familiar with grounding and to try to get to that place of neutrality as best as possible, because there's so many heightened emotions. And so yeah, I I go back and forth with looking at conversations online, because I think it's important to just like, there's nothing more important to me than the human experience. Like you can tell me all the science and the data, whatever, but I want to know what people are feeling and going through when they're in it. And so as much as sometimes looking at things can feel like heightened and uncomfortable, whatever, like I want to see it. I want to know what people are thinking and feeling. And it's kind of all over the board. And so it gives some people the impression that like we're on the verge of like the most heightened polarity and like World War III and collapse of civilization and all of these kinds of things.
Right.
And then I come from a place of like, okay, everything gets super crunchy before it makes way for something
Yeah.
new. And
Yeah.
we're in a crunchy period, and like
Yeah.
it's uncomfortable and it's whatever, but you get to choose how you respond to it.
Mm.
Uh, so I don't know. I I wish there was that more people were actively working on neutrality. And I understand that there are people who feel more impacted by certain outcomes than other people. Like I'm aware of that as well.
Well, I think too, like the journey towards neutrality is like, I mean, if I was like really upset and like had like a specific dream, I can think back to like when I wrote my novel back in like 2016 and it was like becoming a failure. Like I didn't know how to have neutrality. If somebody at that moment when I was like getting like all of these rejection emails and all this stuff and like it wasn't working out and I had just spent 2 years of my life like pouring my heart and soul into something that I so believed in and wanted to make the magic happen, like if someone had told me like, oh, just like find neutrality, I would have just been like, I'm done, like I'm going to set myself on fire, like I just want this to work so bad, right? And like, I mean, that's kind of what happened because I ended up getting cancers because I couldn't find neutrality in my experience. And so neutrality has to find us. And like we go through those crunchy periods where we do hit rock bottom, and that's where it's like, okay, like it can't get any worse. And like when you're at that point of like it can't get any worse, that's kind of neutrality. So
Mhm.
that's where we're going through like a big humanity feeling. Some people went through that it can't get any worse 2 years ago or 3 years ago or 4 years ago, and some people are going through it right now. These are the different, stages. And it's like it's crazy because we all, again, I'm just going to say it, like we all have one thing in common, like the human body, the human experience, the breathing, the eating, like the over bombardment of all this stuff in our day-to-day lives. And it's just like ultimately we all are connected.
Yeah, I love that you said that because really it is uh it's almost like there were, like you said, several years ago, so many of us felt like, oh my gosh, this can't get any worse. And a few years later, it's like there's a whole new faction of people saying, oh, it can't get any worse. And it's like we all have to go through
Mhm.
this uncomfortable, whatever, in order to get to, okay, how can we all come together again? And I don't know why why we have to be tested in that way, but it seems as though that's kind of the
Yeah.
shift. I don't know if you have any insight into the why, but
I mean, I just feel like when things come up that are so polarizing, like I've even experienced it like within my own family, like where, different opposing views like create just walls basically. And like, it's really targeting people's sense of safety and people's sense of like being able to be like themselves. And like I think that when you're in that space of like trying to figure out who you are and like what you stand for, that's when you have the opportunity to kind of like create yourself anew. If you do have space, sometimes like that liberation, like when you graduate high school and you go to college and there's like all these brand new people and you feel like, oh whoa, I can be like whoever I want,
yes.
and it's like moving to a new city and like just being able to present yourself, put yourself forward. And it's like that's what's most hard about this time that we're going through, but that's like part of the function of why it's happening. Like the disillusionment of what's familiar creates that discomfort so that we can all recreate ourselves from like the highest expression of who we're supposed to be.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That you
Mhm.
just worded that so beautifully. Yeah. Okay. So I want to know, with the way in which you serve clients and what you're seeing in the world at large, especially just right here in the United States.
Mhm.
But what are some of the common themes that you are seeing as you help people work through um, through things right now in the way that you serve?
So I think one of the biggest things that I see is this like dawning of a new connection to self with everybody, where they do feel like they're starting to feel, a lot of people, more connected to their inner gut, in their inner knowing. They're starting to feel actually more confident from like a higher place, actually. But what is creating like a pressure for people is that like they feel like they can't fit in to the old mold of who they were or who they were supposed to be. So like I'll work with somebody who, finds me like through a friend of a friend, and they're going through like, a hard time where they just like feel like something's off, the energy is off. And so then I'll, speak with them for a little bit, and then we'll kind of like, tap into their energy and their experience and recognize that like, there's a dissonance between where and how they want to be living and how they're actually living. So that can look like some people that know they want to get healthier and quit smoking, but they just can't stop smoking. And it's like, it's hindering their everyday, but like mentally they know. And so that would be like a huge shift. Or people that are in marriages or relationships where it's no longer like serving them to like not listen to their gut if they're not happy.
Mhm.
Other situations, it's like things are coming out of the woodwork, like things come out of nowhere that like shift people in such a big way. So like, a random experience would happen in a relationship where the people are like basically forced to break up because the information that's revealed is so like far-fetched. And it's like, oh, I was so disillusioned by who this person was. So
Mhm.
it's really about going back to that like honoring of the self. And I'm seeing that as like a huge common theme where it's like people are just getting back to the simplicity of just connecting with themselves. And I think that with how busy the world and our lives, no matter where you live, have become because of the internet, it really is taking a lot of effort for everybody to create a boundary that's not just energetic, just like a time boundary with like how much we're consuming, and like, figuring out that balance, because we're still going to want to do it. And yeah, so it's really like, to answer the question directly, it's, I think, about honoring that authentic, pure essence of who each person is.
Mhm. That's beautiful. It's
Yeah.
interesting because growing up, having a sense of humor was always a large part of my identity. And
Mhm.
I still think I'm very funny. But I will say, when I got into my like mid 30s and started to connect more to my power, a lot of the ways that I was funny growing
Mhm.
up was self-deprecating.
Oh yeah.
And so I've found myself like missing a a part of me that I feel like is dying off a little bit. And it's not that I don't, I don't want, I'm not funny anymore. It's not that I don't, whatever, but it's like this part of me that it doesn't resonate with me anymore, that
Doesn't fit. Mhm.
yeah, didn't take myself seriously.
Yeah.
Um, Making fun of myself all the time. Like, that was a defense mechanism that I used for so many years, and it made
Yeah.
everyone else around me feel very comfortable. And I still think some of that is good to an extent, but yeah, there's like those pieces where you can feel a little bit of grief too. Like
For
I'm
sure.
always going to want to keep that humor super important to me, but it's just showing up differently. And so that's a transition.
And that's like the thing, is like we're all going through these micro transitions, and we're all grieving like these old parts of self, that it's like for everybody, everyone on this planet is going through a time where they don't really feel like it's not comfortable as it used to be. And like we find new comforts, but they're not like when we were just in the flow of things and kind of like unconscious about our behaviors. Now, everywhere you look, like every 3 posts on social media is all about shifting your mindset, shifting your behavior. And like this is becoming mainstream when it comes to personal growth and like our own reflection. And once you make like a little habit shift, or a light bulb goes off about one of our behaviors, like that's like, it's so weird, because it's like you can't fit something that's grown back into that old mold anymore.
Yeah. And I think it's, as much as I'll always think of that as part of my identity and want to, it's just not one of the first things I think of anymore. And so there's a part of me that's like, oh, that's always been me. And that's, Am I not showing that enough? Is that still part of me? I
Oh
don't
yeah.
know. Interesting.
Well,
Yeah.
the thing is, it's like when something like that changes, it's like you never had a conversation with yourself while that was very active. Like you never had a conversation with yourself about like, oh, I should do that more. You just did it because it was
Right.
like an unconscious behavior. And it's like we just do these things and act a certain way. And then I don't know, it's just it's cool to see like the identity shift, and it's like we're all changing
Mm.
and we're all constantly growing. And then like I remember at the beginning of my like changes, like I feel like I had cancer at 29 and 30, and then like post that, like I remember just hearing from so many friends, God, you've changed so much, oh, you're so different. And it's like, you know I remember like making a doodle, and it was like, you say I've changed like it's a bad thing, like isn't that the whole point of life, evolving? And it's just like, yeah, we're supposed to evolve and we're supposed to like keep celebrating, but somewhere or another, like it became like a societally bad thing to, keep upgrading yourself.
I
And it's
know.
just
I've seen a like a little cartoon. I think it was James McCree, Words Are Vibrations, who I love. And it said there's like a little cartoon saying character saying, "Why have you changed?" And the other one's like, "Why haven't you?" It's like, isn't that the
exactly.
point?
Yeah.
We all supposed to constantly evolve.
I mean, it's like just bringing it to like a book, it's like when you like an author and you're reading their work and like you're reading the evolution of their work, and then all of a sudden they like come out with like a new book and you're so excited to read it, and then you do and you're like, oh, it's different because that person changed. And it's like it's all of that like fear of change and that resistance to like wanting that evolution. But it's like I think where we're going more into in the Aquarian age is like non-linear. So we're like we're okay, and we're going to be at a point where we're okay with like whatever anybody wants to do, because it's just they're just expressing who they're supposed to be. But it's like
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And okay, so some of the things that people are going through, you had mentioned, and really coming back into self through whatever changes they're experiencing. So
yeah.
what does that look like when you're working with them? Like
So
how are you serving them? What are these sessions or
So
one-on-one?
the way that I do the sessions is they're mostly over the phone, and sometimes I'm lucky enough to have people in person, and they both look the same. So I have people get in a really comfortable state, hopefully, wearing pajamas, like laying on the couch or laying in bed. People will have headphones on. There's no video, and I do no video so that we can just be focused on like the process of what's really going on, like the language, right? And then also the energy. So you've got your headphones on, you're just chilling out. And there's two different ways to do this. We get on the phone and I ask somebody like, is there anything you want to share with me at first? And sometimes people say, oh yeah, I had an argument with my sister, this happened, blah blah blah. And so then we tap into the energy of that, and the way that it looks is I bring people into a heightened state of meditation. So we use the breath to slow down. We use the body as like an anchor point of focus. And what I'm doing is generating basically a field of frequency that it's really cool, because you don't need to be in the same physical space for somebody to feel this field. They can just sense almost like a hug, or like somebody's like kind of holding, and that's just like, okay, I'm holding space for you. And what's happening really is that the person's higher self is coming in, and the way that I receive information comes like sort of all at once, but then I use my like linear human mind to like to bring that into a more beautiful order of how things are done. So, for example, I'll scan somebody and like, let's just say they have what I see is like a tray coming down. So this tray comes down and I feel it instantly and all at once at like three different parts of my body. So that's where I know that this person has patterns there. And there will be like a different item on the tray that's representative of what each distortion pattern or block is. So then we'll go to whatever the first part of the physical body is. And then what happens for me is that I experience like a very, very quick wave of a complete image and story. And so that wave of image and story will then give me information on this person's, whether it's a past life, whether it's a, that relationship dynamic with the sister, and I'll be able to see different scenes and say, okay, something happened, with your sister when you were 6.5. Sometimes it's very specific. And at this moment, a dynamic shifted. And then what I do is I'm reorganizing and taking like knotted energy, just like when you go to get a massage, whether they're like really pressurizing and they're like pressing into that. That's what we're doing on an energetic level, is we're creating pressure. And sometimes people will have an emotional release, or they'll feel really nauseous and sick. And so that's because there's so much pressure going into the clearing. And then once that pressure builds, eventually it just disperses. And so, yeah, that's the one way. And then the other way is that like people don't tell me anything and I just go into their field and I do that exact same thing. And it's pretty cool, because the reflection that I, get is that, people say to me all the time at the end of a session, like, I just feel like you just know me. I feel like you know me. And it's like, I'm not like tapping into people before I get on the phone with them, but like I'm there and I'm able to tap into this higher state where everything is connected. There's no separation from anything. So it's just like the information bank of this universe.
That's so cool. Okay, so how did you start to tap into people's energies so deeply?
Well, it feels like it kind of happened like in two sections all at once. So it was like, I know that, okay, so like looking back now, I have more clarity on like how this happened. But like the moment that I got diagnosed with cancer, it's sort of like I had a fork in the road, and I had like two options. Option one was probably like freak out, be worried, red all over your body. It's taking over, anxiety, claustrophobia from attack of what's inside my body. And path number two was absolutely nothing, but just like a higher light. So it was just like higher light. And I was like, with complete unknowingness of like what that meant. And I'm like, I mean, didn't have this like conversation with myself, but in the moment when I got that diagnosis, and like the doctor continues to talk, for 10 minutes, telling us about the procedures, blah, 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 I'm like half listening. And by the time he walks out of the room, I'm like, I can feel like my dad, my mom, and my husband all looking at me like, what's going to happen? Like, this is a huge moment where we're all alone and we can be real. And I'm just like, all right, like we got this, like, let's go get some ice cream. So during that time, as the doctor's talking, I just decide like an integration period of like, well, I could either die or I could like say yes to the unknown, which is probably also likely going to still lead me to death eventually. So I'll just like choose the other one, because like, this is a lottery anyways. And so I had that big knowing. And then from that, it was just like still having like the scary anxiety of like being attacked by this cancer, and like learning that like I have to figure my shit out. Like I have to know how to not be anxious. I have to learn how to have more control over my emotions and like not take things so personally. And so it's like over the like couple years, I would say 2 years after like that time when I was like getting chemo, was where I was like doing work on myself first. And then there was a definite like meditation moment where I had been meditating a lot, like 2 times a day, maybe 3 times a day for like 3 hours a day. Because when I first found meditation and I went to this Deepak Chopra course out in San Diego, they, it's this beautiful foundation that gives like retreat opportunities and yoga to cancer survivors and cancer patients. It's called Be Well. And they're an awesome foundation. And so they invited me to go to the Chopra Center, and it was like thousands of dollars for this retreat ticket. And there they kind of trained you, okay, you're going to meditate for 3 hours a day. And at first I thought it was a lot, but the first time I got clarity in meditation was at one of those events. It was the deepest meditation that I had ever experienced after like 6 months of trying meditation. And in that moment, I like received a message that like echoed out into my like whole body that just felt like it was my purpose. And my purpose or my dharma is to inspire connection. And so, when I come out of that, I think, oh, okay, I'm going to inspire connection tangibly through like greeting cards and journals. And so that's what I started doing. But then it's also that like inspiring, really, it's connection to source, connection to the self, connection to the universe. And it's that inspiration, like excitement to make you feel alive.
Wow, that is so awesome. I mean, I've had those moments before where you get a download and you get a message that is just like divine. It's made just for you, and it resonates. Like you said, you felt it throughout your whole body.
Yeah.
Curious because I can't remember if I've ever had one of those before I started meditating. So I'm curious as to whether or not you feel like you have, or if it really took meditating, coming back to self before you started receiving those messages.
So I think that it did really take the opening of my consciousness, but I do feel like I can think of a few other moments of like extreme and clear joy that like really, really stuck out at me. Um, so one of them was when I had this like awesome, awesome day with my girlfriends, and I was probably 20, and we all like went out to the forest. We were frolicking around, and like we went to go get lunch after, and we were just like laughing, 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 like just so soulfully and beautifully. And we were all like, it was like, two cars of five girls, and we were just like on this high note. And there was just like this beautiful pinnacle of like, this is like a very, very special day. And I remember we stopped to get lunch, and I bought a new journal, and like I just like wrote more and more in that. Like wrote so much in the journal about that day because it felt very profound and very beautiful. And I would also say that there was one moment that I had with John as well, where it was like maybe our third date. It was our third date, and like we were standing on these steps, and like we had just had brunch, and he held me, and like there was just this sort of like time stood still, and like it just felt like the whole surrounding around us just like echoed, and it like made me feel perceptive of like the fact that like it was like an affirmation that like, oh, okay, there's something more here. I didn't know that, that was like 15 years ago. And
Right.
like I think the thing is, I'm sure you did and have had experiences
Falling in
pre-meditation.
love types of situations for sure. Now that you say that, like, yes,
Yeah.
those moments where you're like, oh, I feel incredibly
Yeah.
aligned and connected to this.
Yeah, in a way that you can't even make up.
Yeah.
Like, and that there's that destiny. And like, we all know that feeling of like, it feels like the world just opens for you when you're in love. And like those first like 3 months of like your first real like soul relationship, it's just like, anything feels possible. And that's exactly what awakening feels like. But the cool thing is like, well, also in love, like it never needs to fade away. So it's like, that's where the sustainability of that feeling comes through meditation, I feel.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that I've had a few conversations with people about is,
Yeah.
yes, misperceptions of like the word awake or awakening.
Okay.
And I feel like sometimes there is a negative connotation, or maybe
Mhm.
it's used, where it's like awake versus not awake, or
Yeah.
what are the differences? But I think, as you already pointed out too, it really, people have awakenings in phases, and they can have an awakening on one particular aspect of their life, and
Yeah.
then but might still be
Yeah.
asleep things over here,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. And so I just kind of wanted to get your opinion on that and what you think about.
Well, I mean, it's true when we use the word awake or awakened, it's actually just a component of identity too. So it's like, it's just like saying like, oh, okay, I identify as, a writer. So I'm identifying as a writer because I love to write. I write in my journal, whatever. I would identify as somebody who's awake. And it's just like, these are all just masks of the ego. And so I think that that's why it's so cringy, and it gives that ick factor to a lot of people, because it's just like, it's like, you know, if they have maybe had their own experiences where, like, let's just say somebody had a friend who awakened, and all of a sudden, their friend is justifying and using that identity of awakeness to justify all of these things that this friend disagrees with, and is like letting them know like, hey, are you sure you should be doing that? And then like, we don't know what everybody's experiences are, but it's definitely important to recognize that, like, identifying as somebody that is awake and like enlightened or a seeking person, all of those things are just components of the ego that we're trying to tell ourselves, or like masks to kind of like pinhole what's really not like containable, like all of that. And that's why so many people can have, a lot of we can call it more like alignment. They might have alignment when it comes to work stuff, but not alignment when it comes to love stuff. And so it's like recognizing that it's just about the alignment of that energy, and it's not so much about like the term, because it happens slowly for most people, and like it's always happening. Like we're always becoming more and more alive. And so that's why I think in most of the time when I'm like referring to this, I like to think about like celebrating life more, and like seeing it as like the passion that runs through us. And like the more passionate you are, like the more alive, and like I was about to say it again, like awake too, right? But it's like the more you can kind of like just breathe in or feel that whole experience, and like be at that higher level of joy, which we all have gotten to felt, and like hopefully get to feel more of, right?
For sure. And when Chris and I were talking about this the other day in the recording, she had really is about like coming back to self. And for some of us, it's coming into self for really the first time, or maybe since childhood, first time as an adult, anyway. And I love that. And I think if people can understand it, of this is really just a process of coming home to ourselves, then everybody know that's like, not just is it accessible to everybody, but that's like our birthright. Our birthright is to recognize our own power, to be in alignment with however it is we are interacting in the world. And that it's not a hierarchy. It's like just an encouragement for everybody to just be able to honor their own unique selves, because that is like our purpose, is to just be, there's only one you. And if you can be that version of you that's like fully you, then that's a beautiful thing.
For sure. It's like recognizing that like we all want to be like our vacation selves, like the version of us that's like highly rested and like eating the best food and like living, the top part of our life. It's like we all want that. We all want to be like how we are on vacation, like all the time. And so it's like that's the way to look at it. That's what you're saying. It's like it's everybody's right to be able to take rest and to connect with themselves deeply, and like be the vacation version of yourself.
Yeah. Sounds pretty amazing. Okay, so you describe what you do in your one-on-one sessions. What do your group sessions look like? Are those with retreats? Do you take these same kind of sessions with groups outside of retreats, and kind of walk us through?
It's really, really fun. So I get jazzed about group work because of what I can sense, there's just so much energy in the field that gets impacted when we do group work. So of course, doing it like through the internet works really, really well. And like people see shifts. And like when I'm working with groups of people on meditation series, or I've done it where it's, 9 people and we're doing a session where it's like a 3-hour session and everybody's getting worked on a little bit. And when we do that, like everybody feels an experience and a shift, and things start to open up at the individual level. But I'm going to say that the thing that makes retreats really special in particular is that it allows for everybody to get to know themselves, not just from that like one stop point of like a 3 hour dive in, or a 30-minute or 40-minute meditation that goes on for 11 days or whatever. When you're at a retreat, like you get to see and become friends with people at like a 360-degree level. So it's like there's some points where we're at a state of like higher spirit and like connection to like the universe and the soul, and like magic kind of comes upon us. Like when we're hiking, all of a sudden, somebody will find a feather, and then that feather like kind of leads us to a different spot, and like we're all kind of riding this vibe together. And other points, it's like people are playing pickleball, like, and just like messing around with each other and like getting that different aspect or component. And then like we're also getting to like make art together. We always have time at retreats to like be creative and hands-on, and like cut and paste and color and all that stuff. And so you get to express yourself as somebody that's attending a retreat in so many different facets in a short amount of time, but you also get to like receive and like get to know people as like a 360-degree person, their whole person. And so that's why it's so magical when it comes to retreats, because people get to they feel really seen at retreats and feel really, really witnessed. And so you get to almost come home to yourself in like this great way that like by the second day, you're like, oh, whoa, I can just be myself like this all the time. And so then, you go the next 24 hours, like in that coherence of that version of yourself. And like that's the energetic field that's created. So what I'm doing during retreats is I'm working, and actually for months prior to the retreat, I'm working energetically through my meditation, which is kind of like telepathy or clairvoyance. So I'm working on the actual space, the location of where the retreat is happening. So we're working on like the earth energetics, the higher multidimensional energetics that then impact so many people, because a lot of people don't know that they're actually connected to like higher wisdom, higher dimensional wisdom. And so they come to a retreat, not even knowingly sometimes, to connect and to charge up from that wisdom so that then they can take it home and like impact their world and their field. And so, yeah, retreats are incredibly powerful. And I think that everyone goes home at like a higher version of themselves, and then maintaining that is part of the like friendship that comes out of it. Because like when you make friends at a retreat, then you continue that evolution, and you still kind of have the line on still being able to be that full authentic version of yourself, even if it takes like a month or 2 months growing period for you to like fully embody that self.
Yeah, and there's something that's so awesome about stepping outside of all the labels that you wear, whatever your career is, if you're a spouse, if you're a parent, and then you just get to be you for, how long are your retreats usually?
So they're either a 3-day weekend retreat, or they're going to be like 5 days. And then next year, we're actually going to up that a little bit. We're going to go on a 7-day retreat, just because it feels like we do want just a little bit more of that magic.
Cool.
So, yeah.
Do you know where you're going next year?
Yeah. So I actually have an upcoming retreat in January in Wisconsin, in Green Bay. So it's about I think 5 hours or 4.5 hours from Minneapolis, and it's going to be at a retreat center. And so I've been kind of called to the land at this retreat center, and we're going to be doing a lot of work on the winter. So it's three different seasons. We have a fall, we have a summer, and we have a winter. So the winter one is first, and that one is really about kind of switching our mindset about winter and that isolation, and using the pressure of the isolation to come to even more like really, really clear light within ourselves. So I've been working a lot with the crystalline energy, and that is more or less a function or foundation or part of the energetic body or the light body. And so that's becoming highly activated. So we're working with snow on that first one, but we're called to that place in order to do work on the land, because it's actually surrounded by farmland that has been worked for generations and generations, like probably hundreds of years, for sure 100 years, because the owners have, it's been in their family and like been used as like corn for 100 years. And so a big part of that is working with the land to clear the consciousness of the not great, not healthy, like farming system that has been taking a big toll over a lot of our food and a lot of our, a lot of our bodies. And so I'm looking forward to seeing how that unfolds. And yeah,
Yeah.
so
Well,
yeah.
I just knowing what you've shared in like the detox Facebook groups before and the things that you've created with meals and different things, I can imagine that that's a priority at your retreats as well, just like feeding the body.
Huge.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, because I think that like, you know, purifying our lifestyle it's important. I mean, I really always want to, echo the importance of having balance, but like accountability being also a huge part of it. It's like, the more I am accountable for my life, the more magic has come in for me. So that looks like, not, reaching for ice cream every night after dinner, like being a little bit more mindful about what I eat and saying, okay, maybe I'll try that ice cream like once a week or once every 2 weeks or whatever. And then I'll have like some apples with, some nut butter or whatever, things like that. And so I'm really aware of doing organic food, always having like really good snacks and using whole foods. I like to get creative when it comes to food, and so that's another component, an aspect of the creative part. And I also think like energetically, like we all know our favorite like dish that our mom or our aunt or our grandma or our dad has made for us, and it's just like you crave that and you just like want that comfort. It's because it's their energy that's like going in the food.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so powerful. I mean,
Totally.
I just finished the fall detox. I did a little bit after
That's
she
great.
called it out. Yeah. And I I mean I've been doing it as not almost as long as Chris has been doing it.
That's
So
awesome.
funny. Usually 4 times a year, but every single time I do it, I'm just reminded of like, wow, it so matters what you put in your body. I mean, how mentally clear I feel, the amount of joy and just like the brain chemistry that
It's
shift.
awesome. It's so crazy. Like you can't make it up. By the time you're on like the 10th day, you're just like, you like feel so vibrant and like alive. And like every time I look at pictures of myself from the last part of the detox, I'm like glowing. And it just is like, it's like perfectly called the radiant reset, because it just like, I
Yeah.
am so alive. And like the first time I did the detox last year in January, I was like, this is what self-love looks like. Like people are like, oh, how do I do self-care? What, I'm always trying to think of different ideas to like, love myself and up that confidence. And eating is such a big part of it because it takes that commitment, and it's a lot of cooking, but
Yeah.
it's also so worth it.
Right. Well, yes. And it reminds me of like how lazy I can get about the
Yeah.
lack of cooking and just go
Uh-huh.
for a protein bar or something that's fast
Yeah.
because it's easy. But then
Oh yeah.
yeah, when you cook things yourself and you sit down and you like actually just enjoy it and you're in
Yeah.
a parasympathetic state when you're eating, it's like
Oh, it's magic. Like John and I, my husband, we've been really like we've been really practicing like, okay, we live in a place where there's like two places that we would really eat at like on a regular basis. And so we don't really eat out that much. And so, it could be easy to do just really convenient things, which like it happens. But for the
mhm.
most part, it's like we're just trying to make that choice. Like yesterday, I was like tired at the end of the day, whatever. And like, had been wanting to go to the store, and I was like, all right, I sat in the car, just like did some deep breathing for a little bit, and then I like went in. I like did a gorgeous shop, like brought everything good home, and then I was like, all right, I'm starving, but like I'm just gonna like sit here, and like I didn't want to break my fast because I had been fasting for a long time,
Yeah.
and I just like laid down and I was like, this is going to be so worth it. And like by the time like we had ground beef and beans and Brussels sprouts and avocado and some rice, and it was just like all this whole food that was like so amazing. And I'm like, I'm so happy that I just chose to do that because it
Yeah.
just lit me up even more.
Yes, I know it's wild. And yeah, I know that in the past that like, okay, I know that I detox 4 times a year, so things slip and I might start having
Right.
caffeine again, or I might have
Yeah.
whatever. But yeah, I mean, I'm just on the tail end of it now. So I'm like, oh, I want to just keep this going as long as possible because
And that's what I usually do. Like whenever I get in that zone, like I will then stay in it. But what I've started to realize, because when we go on retreat, like we're basically eating at the detox level. I do bring like carbs in.
yeah,
Um, and sometimes we'll have like treats, like last time made banana bread or whatever, but it's like made with maple syrup, that kind of thing, like more
yeah,
wholesome. But like as I start to just recognize like it's just about cutting out the like convenience foods, but like other than that, like you can continue eating those whole foods all the time and like just feel
yeah,
great. Like
yeah,
it doesn't have to be totally perfect. And I think that Kristen's really good about like showing balance in that. Like, you know, when she makes her like awesome looking like random desserts that she's like, "Ooh, I decided to make this." It's like she's not saying like cut this out forever. She's
right.
like bringing balance into it. And
Yeah,
that's
the
such a
thing
big
I was
part of
like
that.
piled
Yeah.
the other
With
day.
the cool,
No,
like the Cool
yeah,
Whip or whatever it was, like the whatever cool topping.
yeah, yeah, it's still a healthier version, but it's like, yeah, it looked like a very decadent treat. So I'm like, oh, I need to try that sometime.
The crazy thing is though, like after not having any like sugar or carbs for 15 days, like I don't even want it. Like,
I know,
and that's the weird thing is it's like it just comes back in and it's just like the body only wants what you're giving it. So
right? That it's so true. And yeah, I think for anybody who's new to meditating, new to, I don't know, eating more just whole, real foods, there might be that, like, again, another crunchy period in the beginning,
for
but once
sure.
you get in the practice of it, that's just,
Yeah.
you just crave more.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like I remember the first time doing the detox too, which is actually very similar to like that first time, like meditating, like consistently. Like I'd really like with the detox, I just felt like massively like my stomach would not stop gurgling. Even though I wasn't really hungry, it just kept like there was like a lot of just gurgling. And then with like the meditation component, it was like I remember just feeling like off and like confused and emotional and all this stuff. And it's like that's just part of the integration period of like starting something new. And it's like if when we're frustrated, like that's the biggest telltale sign that like things are changing. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
cool.
absolutely. I want to check out your meditation stuff. So when is that? Yeah, you're in the middle of one right now?
Yeah, we're in the middle of one right now. I can even send you the info and you can just join for the next week since it's still going on for a week. And um, I'll do that after we get off. But every 11th of the month, we join and meditate for 11 days. So I'm actually doing the next one and going forward, starting in December. It's going to be paired with a workshop. So I love doing like creativity and things like that. And I think that that's another really fun way to get um, like doing something that's different. You know, as adults, we're not really like using that creative, like
Right.
tangible experience. And like, I always notice like at the retreats, everybody like wants more of that. We have so much fun with it. And it's something that like I've made such a priority in my life. It's really easy for me. So it's
Mm.
something that I can share. So going forward, we'll be doing the 11-day meditation. And within that, there will be like a little creativity workshop. And it's all, you know, about connecting to that original voice. So
That's
fun.
so cool. So when you do when you do your meditation, is it a group that you're doing it virtually and then you're kind of leading it? And how long are each set? How long is each?
So typically it's like people join with a link. And then if you can't make it live to the any of the days, then that link becomes a recording. So you click the link, you get on. Nobody can see who else is on or how many people there are, anything like that. It's just about you being there in your headphones, relaxing in your pajamas, whatever, or in your car, wherever you are. And we get on. Sometimes I do a little bit of a talk on what we are working with. So this year or this month, we're talking about freedom of expression. So it's all about our creative expression, but it's also about like taking off the masks of like expectations for, what we're supposed to express ourselves like based off of like certain identities. So identity like patterns and stuff. And so we go into that consciousness talk. And when I'm doing the meditations, people are able to really get connected to themselves, and whether or not they're listening to what it is that I'm saying doesn't really matter. It's just more about like the frequency that's going on and in the field and connecting to the breathing. So they're completely guided, and they're anywhere from 35 to 45 minutes.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, I can't wait to dive into that. And how about your next? Can we give anybody some like update? Did you say your next retreat's in January? Is that right?
Yeah. So January 31st to February 2nd is that Green Bay retreat, and it's called Balance in the Elements. This is the winter version of that. I've just been certified as a breathwork coach as well. So I'm incorporating a lot of breathwork into that retreat with the intention of creating like an intensity for breakthrough. And we're also going to do an ecstatic dance party. So Saturday night will be, I'm going to be, decorating for a big party. And like, it's just going to be fun to go from breathwork, because breathwork kind of gets you in this like higher state of being, and you feel so free. And then to go into dance where the lights are just like totally off, and we'll have like some glowing lights and things like that. And just like, to me, when I'm looking big picture, I'm like, in the middle of winter, in the middle of Wisconsin, like doing this like really, really fun, work to like connect to ourselves and just like have it be really free spirited and flowy. So that's going to be great. And you can check out my website for that. It's I'm sure Lindsay will have the links, but it's Hi-Fi Daniela, and on there you'll find my retreat page or whatever, and you can sign up for the retreat. And I'm just really excited about that. And also for the retreat, we're doing what's called the REM Healing Circle. And so this is where everybody gets to focus on one aspect or component, or even like their whole life that they want to transform over the next few months. And so we're going to do a really deep meditative healing around that, using the energy of the group. And that's going to be about 2 or 3 hours, and it'll be during the end of the retreat. So,
oh, very cool.
Yeah,
sounds awesome. Okay, I will make sure I have those links in the description for everybody to check out your stuff.
Great, thank you. Yeah, really, really appreciated being able to connect with you today. Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh, it's always a joy to just be in your energy, and I adore you, and I can't wait to check out some of your new offerings. So thank you so much, Daniela.
Of course, thank you. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, sounds good.